If you want to hear good stories, please subscribe to the channel and press follow. The garage in Palo Alto was sweltering that summer of 2015. A rusted ceiling fan squeaked overhead, turning so lazily it seemed to thicken the air instead of cooling it. Outside, the faint whine of passing cars mixed with a neighbor's barking dog. Inside, the sound was different, 3 keyboards clattering in uneven sync, like the heartbeat of a dream too stubborn to die. Alex sat tall, hair slicked back with drugstore gel, his eyes glued to a spreadsheet. Rows of numbers, burn rates, and market projections sprawled across the screen. He wasn't thinking about product. He was thinking about capital, runway, valuation. For Alex, code was just plumbing. Money was the language that mattered. Across from him, Maya looked like she hadn't left that chair in days. Her dark hair was tied back in a careless knot, her gray t-shirt wrinkled, her fingers racing across the keyboard like she was possessed. Lines of code filled the screen, thousands of them, stitched together into an algorithm that could predict global shipping flows before they happened. Next to her laptop sat a stack of notebooks, handwritten in neat, obsessive ink. She didn't just code. She architected. She dreamed in logic. And then there was Daniel. Smooth talker, natural host, always with the kind of grin that could sell ice in Alaska. Daniel wasn't the engineer, wasn't the numbers guy. He was the bridge. The translator who could turn Maya's math into a story investors wanted to hear, who could stand in a boardroom and make a beta version sound like a revolution. They called their baby Nexacore. The name had come from Maya, muttered half-distracted while sketching out a diagram. Nexa, like next. Core, the heart. We're building the heart of what's next. Her eyes had lit up, tired but fierce. Alex had nodded like a venture capitalist already. Daniel had clapped his hands and said, "Sounds like IPO material." They cracked open warm Red Bulls and clinked cans. 3 kids, 1 garage, 1 ridiculous dream. For a moment, it felt like everything was simple. But even in that moment, the cracks were already spidering under the paint. While Maya buried herself in code, Daniel leaned close to Alex, lowering his voice. "You know what the VCs are gonna say. Too many founders looks messy. They want a clean story. 1 face, 1 leader." Alex didn't answer right away. He knew Daniel was right. Maya was brilliant, maybe the most brilliant person he'd ever met, but she hated the spotlight. She refused to wear a blazer, refused to rehearse pitches. She'd rather argue about a regression model at 2 a.m. than smile through a demo day. Investors liked genius, sure. But they loved polish. Daniel pressed on. "She's the brain, no question. But she's not the image. You and I, we can sell this thing. Maya can't." Alex tapped his pen against the table. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. Across the room, Maya's face glowed in the blue light of her monitor, lost in code. She didn't see the glance they exchanged. She didn't hear the quiet verdict forming behind her back. That night, around 2 a.m., Maya finally leaned back in her chair, rubbing her neck. "The prediction module's stable," she said, her voice hoarse. "If the inputs stay clean, we're looking at 27% cost reduction across shipping networks. Minimum." Daniel whistled low. "That's the kind of number investors tattoo on their foreheads." Alex forced a smile. He glanced back at his spreadsheet, at the equity split scrawled in the corner, 33/33/34. A simple division that, sooner or later, was going to feel like war. A few weeks later, the 3 of them were on stage at a seed fund pitch. Daniel delivered the story with charm. Alex fielded the market questions. Maya just sat hunched over her laptop, demoing the product live. The dashboard lit up, projections flowing in real time. The audience clapped, impressed, but their eyes lingered on Daniel, not Maya. Daniel had the voice. Maya was just the ghost in the machine. Afterward, while Maya stepped out to take a call from her mom, Alex and Daniel stayed behind with the lead investor. The man gave them a smile that was friendly but sharp. The tech is good. Really good. But 3 founders? That's complicated. The street doesn't like complicated. If you want big money, you need one story, one leader. Daniel didn't even blink. He looked at Alex. Alex didn't respond, but the silence was its own kind of answer. The seed of betrayal had been planted. Back in the garage that night, Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through her notebooks, too tired to notice the tension. She looked up, grinning despite the bags under her eyes. We're gonna make it. But promise me something, no matter what happens, we stick together. 3 founders. Nobody gets left behind. Daniel raised his can of Red Bull. Alex clinked his against hers. Together they echoed, nobody gets left behind. The light from the bare bulb swung overhead, shadows shifting across Alex's face. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. By 2018, the garage was ancient history. Nexacor now lived in a glass and steel office on University Avenue, Palo Alto, complete with kombucha on tap and a neon sign that glowed, "Disrupt the future." 3 years had turned the scrappy dream into a rocket ship. Investors bragged about getting in early. Tech blogs called them the new Oracle. Recruiters poached engineers from Google and Facebook just to say they were part of the next revolution. Every Monday all hands ended with applause, the kind that rattled glass walls. But inside that applause was a fracture line. Alex loved it, the spotlight, the interviews, the carefully rehearsed quotes about transformational data ecosystems. He'd swapped hoodies for tailored blazers and started practicing a CEO tilt to his head in photographs. Daniel thrived even more. Panels, keynotes, podcast interviews, he was the voice of Nexacor, dropping buzzwords like confetti, synergy, network effects, predictive scaling. And Maya? She stayed behind closed doors, buried in servers and code. The press never mentioned her name. Even employees whispered, who actually built the engine? A few knew the truth. Most didn't care. Visibility mattered more than reality. The IPO rumors started late that year. Venture capitalists circled like hawks. Every meeting ended with the same question, when are you going public? One night, after a 12-hour day of debugging a regression failure, Maya pushed into the boardroom. She still wore her faded t-shirt, the only woman in a sea of suits. Alex was at the head of the table, Daniel by his side, both sipping sparkling water like champagne. Maya dropped her laptop on the polished wood. The prediction module is stable again. The system won't collapse under Q4 loads. We're ready to scale. The board clapped politely. Alex nodded. Daniel leaned forward, smiling. That's fantastic, Maya. Really. But tonight's about bigger things. We're in talks with Goldman. IPO window could open next year. This is where Nexacor becomes more than just code. It becomes a movement. Maya blinked. A movement doesn't keep forecasts from breaking. Code does. The boardroom chuckled. She felt her cheeks heat. Alex cut in smoothly, Maya, your work makes all of this possible. We'll always value that. His words were honey. His eyes were cold. After the meeting, Daniel cornered Alex in the elevator, voice low. She's a liability. You saw the room. She doesn't sell the vision. Investors need clarity, not someone mumbling about regression errors. Alex exhaled. She's the brain. Without her. Brains don't ring the Nasdaq bell, Daniel interrupted. Look, we've got one shot at this. We can't let her sink the story. Start thinking about a restructure. The elevator doors opened. Neither of them noticed Maya standing at the far end of the hall, laptop hugged to her chest, watching the doors slide shut. Growth was a drug. By 2019, Nexacor's valuation hit $1.8 billion. Engineers pulled 70-hour weeks for stock options they believed would turn them into millionaires. Maya pulled them too, except she wasn't dreaming about yachts. She dreamed about stability, about the math actually working, about the code not collapsing under the weight of Daniel's promises. At an industry conference in Vegas, Nexacore unveiled version 2.0. Daniel took the stage under neon lights. This, he boomed into the microphone, is not software. This is the future of global logistics. The crowd roared. Screens behind him flashed predictive graphs, all generated by the engine Maya had refined line by line. She stood in the wings, unnoticed, listening to thousands cheer for a story she wrote but would never be allowed to tell. That night, she overheard two venture partners at the hotel bar. "Smart move," one said. "Pushing the woman out before IPO. 3 founders is messy. 2 looks tight. And she doesn't fit the narrative." Maya froze, glass of water halfway to her lips. "Push her out." The words rang like a gavel. The real knife came a month later. An email from the company's legal counsel, subject line, Founders Equity Restructuring Proposal. Maya opened it and felt her stomach drop. A mandatory recommendation for her to sell back her shares at a fair market rate ahead of the IPO. The language was polite, clinical, lethal. At the bottom, Daniel's name appeared under Strategic Alignment Committee. She stormed into Alex's office, slamming the printed contract on his desk. "What the hell is this?" Alex didn't flinch. He steepled his fingers, voice calm. "Maya, this is what the market demands. Too many founders complicate governance. You'll get a comfortable payout. You can take time off, start another project, write a book. Everyone wins." "I built this engine," Maya snapped. "Every line of code that powers your IPO hype, I wrote it. And you want me to sell it back like a used car?" Daniel appeared in the doorway, leaning casually against the frame, smirk curling. "Think of it as freedom. You won't have to deal with the stress anymore. We'll handle the burden of leadership." Maya's fists clenched. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unrelenting. She looked at Alex, her friend, her supposed partner. His eyes slid away. The silence was worse than any shouting. That night, back in her apartment, Maya sat staring at the contract. 22% of the company, her sweat, her years, her life, reduced to a sterile number on a page. If she signed, she would be erased from Nexacore history. If she refused, they would find another way to cut her out. Her phone buzzed. A Slack message from a junior engineer. "Maya, you okay? Heard rumors, people saying you're leaving. Please tell me it's not true." Her throat tightened. She didn't answer. Instead, she opened her laptop, pulled up her oldest commit log. The timestamp read 2015. 2:17 a.m. A younger version of herself had written, "Core engine initialized." "Maya." She whispered to the screen, voice breaking, "Nobody gets left behind, remember?" And for the first time, she realized she already had. The contract didn't disappear. It followed Maya everywhere. Printed copy on her desk. PDF in her inbox. Reminder pings from legal. Each one felt like a countdown clock, ticking toward an erasure she hadn't consented to. By March, the pressure escalated. Alex and Daniel invited her to a private strategy session. The invite came through with a subject line that made her stomach flip, Founder Alignment Meeting. When she arrived, the conference room looked staged for execution. A long table, one folder placed at her seat. Alex sat at the head, jacket buttoned, face carved in corporate calm. Daniel lounged to the side, phone in hand, smirk locked in place. Maya sat down, eyes on the folder. Her name was stamped on the cover. Beneath it, Equity Buyback Agreement, Urgent. Alex cleared his throat. "Maya, you know how much we value what you've built. None of this exists without you. But the reality is, investors are demanding clarity before the IPO. Too many founders, too many voices, it spooks them. This isn't personal. It's just business. She let out a laugh that cracked mid-sound. 8 years of code, of skipped holidays, of pouring myself into this engine, and you're telling me it's not personal? Daniel leaned forward, elbows on the table. Think of it as evolution. Companies evolve. People evolve. You'll get your payout, you'll get freedom, and we'll carry the torch. Carry the torch? Maya shot back. You're trying to hand me the bill and call it freedom. Alex raised his hands, palms out, like a negotiator. Look, the offer is generous. 22%, cashed out at a premium valuation. You can walk away with more than enough to start whatever you want. She met his eyes. What if what I want is to stay? The silence that followed was surgical. Daniel finally broke it, his smile tightening. Then you'll block the IPO. And if you block the IPO, the board will move to remove you. One way or another, this ends the same. Maya's chest tightened. Her fingers dug into the folder, nails leaving crescents in the cardboard. She could feel the walls of the company she had built closing in, turning her from founder to liability. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on the floor of her apartment, contract pages scattered like shrapnel around her. The words blurred into weapons: mandatory, realignment, governance, equity transfer. She opened her laptop, scrolled through old photos, the garage, the late-night coding sessions, the Red Bull cans stacked like trophies. In every shot, she was there, shoulder to shoulder with Alex and Daniel. Proof she existed. Proof she mattered. And now, a few signatures could erase her from the record, as if she'd never been there at all. The next morning, she walked into the office and felt it, eyes on her, whispers in corners. Engineers went quiet when she passed. HR avoided her gaze. On the company's website, the About Us page had been updated. Founded by Alex Carter and Daniel Shaw. Her name was gone. Just gone. Maya's pulse roared in her ears. She stormed into Alex's office, slammed the laptop open in front of him. What the hell is this? My name, Alex. Where is my name? Alex barely looked up. The comms team jumped the gun. We'll fix it later. Fix it later. Her voice cracked. You've already written me out. I'm not dead, Alex. He sighed, finally meeting her gaze. His eyes were tired, maybe even guilty, but the guilt didn't matter. Maya, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Sign the agreement. Take the payout. Start fresh. Her vision blurred. She wanted to scream, to throw the laptop across the room, to shake him until the mask cracked. But all she managed was a whisper, you promised. Nobody gets left behind. For the first time, Alex flinched. Daniel, standing in the doorway, didn't. He leaned against the frame, voice casual, almost amused. Promises are for garages. IPOs are for adults. The words sliced deeper than any contract ever could. That evening, she left the office with her badge deactivated. At the elevator, the scanner beeped red. Security handed her a cardboard box, the same humiliating ritual she'd watched dozens of laid-off employees endure. Inside were her belongings, a coffee mug, a cactus she'd kept alive through endless nights, and a USB drive she'd almost forgotten about. As she stepped out into the California dusk, Daniel's voice echoed in her memory, IPOs are for adults. Her throat tightened, but no tears came. Betrayal didn't hit like a car crash. It hit like a slow poison, seeping deeper with every breath. She looked down at the USB drive in her hand. Small, unremarkable, almost laughable. But inside, raw code, design sketches, commit logs. Proof. Evidence. The bones of a story they couldn't erase, no matter how many press releases they wrote. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, the USB drive glowing faintly in her laptop port. The files loaded, line after line of her work, her fingerprints, her legacy. Her phone buzzed. A message from a junior engineer. They said you left to pursue new opportunities. That true? Maya stared at the screen. Her reflection in the dark glass looked like a stranger. She typed one word back, no. Then she opened a blank document, titled it the take-back log, and began to write. Dates, meetings, decisions. Every time Daniel stole her credit. Every time Alex stayed silent. Every line of betrayal carved into history. Her hands shook, but her resolve hardened. They thought they'd cut her out. They thought this was the end. They didn't know they had just built her beginning. The morning after her badge went red, Maya woke to silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that pressed in from every corner of her apartment, suffocating. No Slack pings, no calendar reminders, no late-night bug reports. For the first time in 8 years, her phone didn't buzz with Nexacore alerts. She checked her inbox. Locked out. Tried the shared drive. Access denied. Even her personal Dropbox folders, the ones she'd synced years ago with harmless team photos, were empty. Files she thought she owned, snapshots of off-sites, goofy memes, a photo of the 3 founders grinning with Red Bulls in the garage, were gone. Deleted like she'd never been there. Her throat tightened. She tried the company website. Our founders, Alex Carter and Daniel Shaw. 2 glossy headshots, airbrushed smiles. Her name wasn't missing. It had been surgically extracted, rewritten as if she were a ghost story they'd never admit existed. For a moment, she couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Then she slammed her laptop shut so hard it rattled the table. By noon, the news broke. Tech blogs ran with the headline, Nexacore founders prepare for historic IPO. The photos were everywhere, Alex in his tailored suit, Daniel flashing that media-trained grin. Maya's face, her name, her work, none of it made the cut. A friend texted, "Congrats on the IPO. Can't believe you're about to be rich." Maya stared at the message until the letters blurred. She typed back 2 words, "Not me." Then she turned the phone face down. That evening, she wandered the streets of Palo Alto in a daze. The city looked the same, bright storefronts, Teslas humming past, students in Stanford sweatshirts laughing in groups. But to her, it was alien. Every billboard, every headline, every polished interview of Alex and Daniel felt like it was mocking her. 8 years of sacrifice had been rewritten in less than 48 hours. At a cafe, she overheard 2 men in suits scrolling on their iPads. Clever move, one said. Getting the story down to just 2 founders. Investors like a clean narrative. Yeah, the other replied. That third one would have complicated things. What was her name again? The question hung in the air. Neither man could remember. They moved on without caring. Maya sat frozen, her hands trembling around her coffee cup. She wanted to scream across the cafe, her name was Maya. She built the damn engine. But no sound came out. When she got home, the cardboard box from security still sat on her counter. The cactus drooped, soil spilled onto the floor. Her Nexacore mug was chipped. At the bottom lay the USB drive. She pulled it out, holding it like it was a relic. Plugged it in. Folders bloomed on the screen, raw code, early wireframes, emails praising her breakthroughs. Evidence. Memory. Proof. She opened a file marked CoreEngine_V1. The timestamp read, February 17, 2015, 2:17 a.m. Her comment at the top, Core Engine initialized. Maya. Her eyes stung, but still no tears came. Betrayal had burned the tears away. What was left was something sharper. The next day, she went to a bookstore and bought a thick leather-bound notebook. She wrote 2 words on the first page in block letters, take back log. Every night after that, she filled it. Meetings where Daniel stole her credit. Emails where Alex ignored her warnings. Board slides that stripped her name off deliverables. She taped in screenshots, printed commits, scribbled timelines. She wasn't journaling. She was building a case. Meanwhile, Nexacore soared. Billboards went up across San Francisco, revolutionizing the future of logistics. CNBC invited Alex and Daniel on air. They praised their visionary journey and spoke in rehearsed harmony about teamwork and sacrifice. Maya watched from her couch, hands clenched around the remote. She muted the TV before throwing it across the room. The batteries skittered across the floor. "They're erasing me," she whispered into the empty apartment. "But you can't erase the truth." Her isolation deepened. Old colleagues stopped calling. Recruiters never responded. Even LinkedIn became a graveyard. Her profile stuck at co-founder, Nexacore, 2015 to 2019, but nobody endorsed, nobody commented. She was radioactive. One night, she met Serena, an engineer who'd quietly reached out. They sat at a dive bar, neon buzzing overhead. "They told us you left to pursue other opportunities," Serena said, eyes darting around like someone might be listening. Maya laughed bitterly. "Yeah. My opportunity to get erased." Serena leaned in, whispering. "You didn't hear it from me, but, the new code? It's breaking. They don't understand your engine. They're patching over it, but it's duct tape on a dam. It won't last." Maya froze. For the first time in weeks, she felt the faint spark of something alive inside her. Not hope exactly. Something colder. Sharper. "They wanted me gone," she said slowly, "but they forgot one thing." "What's that?" Serena asked. Maya sipped her drink, eyes narrowing. "I built the firewall. And I know exactly where it cracks." That night, she opened her laptop, pulled up a blank spreadsheet, and typed a title, Phase 1. Below it, she listed names, clients, partners, investors. The people who still remembered her. The ones who trusted her work, not Alex's charm or Daniel's spin. Her hand didn't shake this time. By the time the sun rose, the first draft of her comeback was on the page. Maya thought she understood pain. The all-nighters, the migraines from staring at code until her vision swam, the birthdays and holidays sacrificed to make Nexacore breathe, those were nothing compared to this. Because this pain wasn't physical. It was erasure. Everywhere she turned, the company she had built was being paraded as someone else's miracle. Alex, in his sharp suit, smiling for Fortune magazine. Daniel, on stage at TechCrunch Disrupt, delivering soundbites like scripture. "Our engine is redefining predictive architecture." Our engine. Maya would sit on her couch, laptop balanced on her knees, streaming these interviews, fists clenched. Every time they said "our," it felt like a knife sliding between her ribs. The worst part? Nobody questioned it. Investors, journalists, even old colleagues nodded along. The narrative was clean, polished, easy to swallow. Two brilliant men, visionaries, leading the next tech revolution. Her name was the complication they'd surgically cut out. For weeks, Maya barely left her apartment. Curtains drawn, fridge empty except for a few cans of LaCroix, post-it notes scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. She filled her take-back log every night, pages bleeding with dates and betrayals. The act of writing was the only thing keeping her tethered. One entry read, "Board meeting, April 2018. Daniel presented my supply chain algorithm as his refined model. I corrected him. He laughed. Alex stayed silent." Another, investor dinner, July 2018. Daniel cut me off mid-sentence. Alex changed the subject. Next morning, my face cropped out of press photos. By the 10th entry, her handwriting grew jagged, angry slashes of ink. It wasn't a log anymore. It was a wound bleeding onto paper. Serena checked in sometimes, usually late at night when courage came easier. "They're patching over your system," she whispered once over the phone. "It's breaking, Maya." Forecast errors in Europe, latency in Asia. They don't know how to fix it without you. Maya closed her eyes, pressing the phone tight to her ear. For a moment, the bitterness lifted, replaced by something dangerously close to vindication. Good, she said quietly. Let it break. But as soon as the words left her lips, guilt followed. She had poured herself into that engine. It was her child. Watching it falter was like watching someone strangle it in slow motion. One night, restless, she opened her laptop and searched for Nexicor's client reports. Most were locked behind firewalls, but a few investor updates had leaked. She scrolled through the PDFs, heart hammering. There it was, Q2 revenue misses projections due to forecasting inconsistencies. Supply chain partners report double-booked routes and vendor conflicts. Her stomach flipped. She knew exactly what that meant. They'd stripped out her redundancy layer, the part she had insisted on, the part Daniel once called over-engineering. Without it, the system was fragile, exposed. Maya slammed the laptop shut, pacing her tiny apartment. They had taken her name, her equity, her future. And now, without even realizing it, they were taking her warnings and proving her right. The bleeding wound inside her didn't close. It deepened. But inside that depth, something else stirred. A week later, she tried going outside. She walked past Nexicor's new billboard downtown, Alex and Daniel, arms crossed, grinning under the words, "Inventing Tomorrow." Maya stopped dead on the sidewalk. People bustled past, barely noticing the woman frozen in front of the towering lie. Her throat tightened. Rage, grief, humiliation, they all collided, and for the first time in months, tears finally came. Hot, angry tears that refused to stop. She leaned against a lamppost, shaking, trying not to sob out loud. 8 years. 8 years, and now she was standing on a public sidewalk, invisible while her work towered 30 feet high in someone else's smile. That night, she sat at her desk, the take-back log open. She stared at the pages until the words blurred. This isn't working, she muttered to herself. Writing it down isn't enough. Her hand hovered over the USB drive. She plugged it in. The old files appeared, glowing like ghosts, early prototypes, regression tests, handwritten notes scanned as PDFs. Her legacy, compressed into folders they had failed to scrub. Maya clicked one labeled UI_wireframe_Maya_V2. The color scheme popped up, the exact palette Daniel had bragged about on stage. She whispered to the screen, voice steady now, "You can't erase me. I'm in the bones of this thing." At 2 a.m., her phone buzzed. Serena again. "You awake?" "Yes." A pause. Then, "You didn't hear it from me, but the board's nervous. Klein and Danner missed their shipping benchmarks. They're blaming Nexicor's forecasts. If this keeps up, IPO could stall." Maya's pulse spiked. Klein and Danner. She'd onboarded their CTO herself, spent months convincing them to trust Nexicor. She sat up straighter, notebook open, pen in hand. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was documenting a wound. She was sketching a strategy. By dawn, she had filled 5 pages. Client names. System weaknesses. Notes on how her engine should have handled the failures. At the top, she wrote in bold letters, Phase 1, Reclaim. The wound still bled, but now it was fueling her. They thought cutting her out would end her story. But Nexicor's cracks were widening, and Maya knew exactly where to press until the whole empire buckled. Spring rolled into summer, and Nexicor basked in its own hype. Billboards across San Francisco flashed Alex's jawline and Daniel's grin like they were rock stars instead of thieves. Every press release screamed, version 3.0 is coming, smarter, faster, revolutionary. Maya told herself she wouldn't look. She tried to bury her head in freelance gigs, debugging clumsy code for startups that thought machine learning meant a pivot table in Excel. But temptation was a slow drip. By June, she broke. She typed Nexacore version 3.0 demo into YouTube. Her stomach lurched as the video loaded, a glitzy conference stage, lights flashing, Daniel striding out in a black turtleneck, playing Steve Jobs cosplay. Behind him, a giant screen displayed graphs, dashboards, a clean, minimalist color palette, hers. Her hand froze on the trackpad. She recognized every shade, every gradient. It was the same UI scheme she'd fought for 2 years earlier when marketing begged for neon. They'd said her palette was too muted. Now here it was, plastered on a 30-foot screen, applauded as visionary. Daniel's voice boomed, "Our team has reinvented predictive logistics from the ground up. Version 3.0 uses proprietary architecture to achieve unprecedented accuracy." Maya nearly threw her laptop. Proprietary? From the ground up? She could still see her own commit logs burned into her memory like scars. This wasn't reinvention. It was theft with new lipstick. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat cross-legged on her living room floor, files spread around her like evidence in a courtroom drama. She pulled up side-by-side comparisons, her old wireframes, Daniel's glossy slides. Identical down to the placement of the navigation bar. Her chest tightened, but not with despair this time. It was rage refined into something harder, sharper. The ember inside her flared back to life. "They didn't just erase me," she whispered. "They're still living off my bones." The thought struck like lightning. If they were still using her designs, her architecture, then they were vulnerable. Because she knew that code better than anyone. She knew where it bent. Where it broke. And where it could be saved. The next day, she called Serena. "Did you see the V3 demo?" Maya asked. Serena groaned. "Don't get me started. Half of engineering wanted to vomit. It's literally your old schema, duct-taped with buzzwords." "Is it working?" "Barely. Forecast error rates are spiking. Clients are grumbling. Klein and Danner's COO almost pulled their contract last week." Maya's pulse quickened. "And Alex? Daniel?" "Pretending it's fine. Spinning like mad. Saying the errors are temporary." Maya leaned back in her chair, a slow, dangerous smile tugging at her lips. "Temporary, huh?" That evening, she dug out her old journal. Not the take-back log this time. The one she'd scribbled in during the garage days, half equations, half dreams. On one page was the original redundancy layer design, sketched in black pen, coffee rings staining the corner. The part they'd cut. The part holding the entire system together. She traced it with her finger, remembering nights spent on the floor of that garage, headphones blasting while Alex and Daniel slept, convinced she was wasting time on extra padding. Now that padding was the missing piece of their so-called revolution. Maya opened her laptop, created a new folder, and named it Beacon. She didn't know why she chose the word, maybe because she felt like she was lighting a flare in the dark. Inside the folder, she copied over the redundancy design. Then she began coding, fingers flying faster than they had in months. Hours blurred into days. Coffee cups piled on her desk. The outside world dissolved until all that existed was the rhythm of her keyboard and the furious clarity of her mind. By the end of the week, she had a prototype, a lightweight overlay that could sit on top of Nexacore's broken architecture and quietly fix its projections in real time. It didn't require ripping out the system. Just intercepting its inputs, rerouting through her algorithm, and spitting out clean predictions. It was surgical. Elegant. And entirely hers. She stared at the blinking cursor, adrenaline rushing through her veins. This wasn't nostalgia. This wasn't mourning. This was strategy. The first test came late one night. She ran Nexacore's public API data through her overlay. The difference was immediate. Their predictions were off by 12%. Hers corrected it down to 2.1. Maya's jaw dropped. Weeks of patchwork had left Nexacore limping. With her fix, it could run like new. She sat back, a laugh escaping her throat, half disbelief, half triumph. They thought they had buried her. But she was about to become the ghost in their machine. The next morning, she emailed one line to Aaron Barlow, the CTO at Klein & Danner, their largest client, the man she'd onboarded personally years ago. "I think I know why your forecasts are failing. Free to chat?" His reply came in 2 minutes flat. "Yes. Urgent. Call me today." Maya closed her laptop, heart pounding. The wound was still raw. But the spark was back. And this time, it wasn't going out. Aaron Barlow didn't waste time. Within an hour of Maya's email, they were on a video call. He looked different from the last time she'd seen him, deeper lines around his eyes, a jaw tight with frustration. "Jennifer," he said, leaning toward the camera, "if what you're telling me is real, you just saved me from walking into a board massacre. Our Q2 numbers are a disaster, and Nexacore is blaming us for feeding bad data." "But I know it's them." Maya nodded. "It's not your inputs. It's their architecture. They stripped out the redundancy layer, the safeguard that balanced variance across regions. Without it, the forecasts collapse under pressure. I can fix it. Quietly. No migration risk, no downtime." Aaron rubbed his temples. They swore version 3.0 was bulletproof. "Now I've got vendors screaming, contracts unraveling, and my CEO asking if we bet on the wrong horse." "You did," Maya said flatly. "But I can build you a better one." Aaron exhaled, the kind of breath people take when they realize they've been lied to. "Send me the prototype." For the next 3 weeks, Maya worked like she was possessed. Her beacon overlay plugged into Klein & Danner's system, intercepting Nexacore's broken predictions and cleaning them in real time. Within days, accuracy jumped 60%. By the end of the month, it was outperforming Nexacore entirely. Aaron sent her an email with 3 words, "You were right." She printed it out and taped it inside her notebook. Proof, not just of her brilliance, but of their failure. But success came with risk. One night, as she was finishing a regression test, a notification popped up, "New message request." It was from an unfamiliar handle, ravik_dev. The message read, "Maya. Don't delete this. I know what they did to you. I have files." Her pulse spiked. She typed back cautiously, "Who is this?" A reply came almost instantly. "Ravi Patel. Senior engineer. You don't know me well. But I was there when Daniel ordered your redundancy layer cut. I kept the logs. They can't know I'm talking to you." Maya's breath caught. She remembered Ravi, a quiet, meticulous coder who never spoke much in meetings. Back then, he'd been just another face behind a monitor. Now, he was a lifeline. They agreed to meet in person, late at night, in a half-empty coffee shop off El Camino. Ravi sat hunched at a corner table, hoodie up, laptop bag on the seat beside him. He looked exhausted, eyes ringed with shadows, fingers tapping nervously on a paper cup. When Maya walked in, his shoulders straightened. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "I almost didn't," she admitted, sliding into the chair across from him. Ravi opened his laptop, turning it toward her. Lines of code, Slack screenshots, Jira tickets, all stamped with timestamps and usernames. "See this?" he said, pointing at one log. "That's Daniel overriding your module. He called it dead weight. Said the board would never understand redundancy. Alex approved it." Maya stared at the screen, fury boiling. "He killed the safeguard. That's why everything's failing." Ravi nodded. "And here, Slack messages. Daniel bragging about pushing you out before IPO. He said, she's too embedded. Get her name off the roadmap." The words lit her chest like fire. Proof. Not just whispers. Not just suspicions. Hard evidence. Why are you showing me this? She asked. Ravi hesitated, then leaned closer. Because I'm next. They've started gutting engineering. Half the team's demoralized. The only people left are yes men. They're setting us up to take the fall when the engine collapses. And I won't let Daniel rewrite the story again. Maya studied him. He wasn't lying. He looked like a man already half crushed by the machine, clinging to whatever scraps of integrity he had left. Help me, she said. Quietly. Feed me whatever you can, logs, errors, client complaints. If I have the full picture, I can dismantle their narrative. Ravi swallowed hard, then nodded. You'll hear from me. That night, back in her apartment, Maya plugged in the USB drive and began cataloging Ravi's files. Each one was a nail in Nexacor's coffin, a Slack message dismissing her contributions, a Jira ticket proving she authored modules Daniel claimed as his, a buried commit log with her initials. She felt the wound inside her throb, but this time, it wasn't just bleeding. It was hardening into armor. For the first time, she wasn't just a ghost screaming into the void. She had an ally inside the machine. The next morning, Aaron from Klein and Danner called again. His voice was urgent. Maya, I don't know what you did, but our board is floored. Accuracy rates are back up. They want a long-term contract. And they want to meet you. Not Beacon. You. Maya froze. If she stepped into the light, Nexacor would know she was back. They'd come after her. Hard. But hiding hadn't saved her before. She looked at the notebook on her desk, the words Phase 1, Reclaim underlined 3 times. Set it up, she said. The conference room was small, rented by the hour in a co-working space that smelled faintly of burnt coffee and printer toner. No polished glass walls, no neon slogans, just 4 white chairs around a scuffed table. But for Maya, it felt like a battlefield. On the other end of the table sat Aaron Barlow, CTO of Klein and Danner. He'd flown up from Chicago for one reason, to see if the mysterious Beacon Analytics could save his company's skin. Maya clicked the projector on. Her laptop screen lit up with charts, data flows, error bars corrected by her overlay. She kept her tone even, professional, but inside her chest, her heart pounded like a drumline. This is your data, she said, pointing to the left column. The numbers looked jagged, erratic, forecasts Nexacor had produced in the past quarter. And this, she tapped the right column, is the same dataset run through Beacon. Same inputs, same time frames. My system reroutes variance through a redundancy layer Nexacor abandoned. Accuracy improves by 63%. Aaron leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the clean green graphs on the right. He whispered, almost to himself, it works. Maya folded her hands. It always did. They just cut it. The meeting ended with a contract draft on the table, 6 figures for the pilot, with a clause for expansion if results held. When Aaron signed, Maya excused herself to the restroom. She locked the stall door, pressed her forehead to the cold metal, and let out a single shaky laugh. Her first strike had landed. Word traveled fast in logistics. Within 2 weeks, 2 more mid-size partners quietly reached out. They'd heard whispers, Nexacor's forecasts were faltering, but some boutique outfit called Beacon was patching holes nobody else could. Maya worked around the clock, living on black coffee and adrenaline, funneling every dollar back into servers and bandwidth. Her apartment floor disappeared under cables and sticky notes. At dawn, she'd wake to the buzz of her phone, Aaron forwarding her another investor complaint about Nexacor, Serena slipping her Slack screenshots, Ravi sneaking her commit histories before Daniel's purge could erase them. The empire was rotting from within. And Maya was feeding on the cracks. Nexacor noticed. It started with a message in her inbox from an anonymous burner, "We know what you're doing. Stop." Then came the legal letter, delivered by courier, thick ivory stock with Nexacor's logo embossed in metallic blue. Inside, a cease and desist accusing Beacon of misappropriation of intellectual property. Maya sat at her kitchen table, letters spread before her, hands steady for the first time in months. She took a red pen and underlined the date, January 14th. The statute Serena had flagged kicked in on January 1st. Any non-compete executed after that date was void if termination was retaliatory. She snapped a photo, sent it to Sarah Patel at the Workers' Equity Legal Initiative, the pro bono lawyer who'd first believed her. Sarah's reply came in seconds, perfect. Let them file. You've got teeth now. But Maya wasn't thinking about courts yet. She was thinking about momentum. Every line of Beacon's code was a hammer, tapping at Nexicor's glass tower. Every new client was another crack. And she wasn't doing it in the shadows anymore. For her second contract, she signed under her real name, Maya Ross, principal architect, Beacon Analytics. When the invoice cleared, she sat back in her chair, staring at those words. Her name. Not erased. Not hidden. Stamped on a legal document, undeniable. The backlash came quickly. Ravi messaged her one night at 2:03 a.m., Daniel's losing it. He called an emergency meeting. Said there's a parasite firm leeching their clients. He suspects it's you. Maya typed back, good. Let him. Ravi, he's ordering compliance to dig through old contracts. Trying to find a clause that sticks. Be careful. She closed the chat and stared out her window at the empty street below. For months, she'd been erased, powerless, invisible. Now Daniel was pacing boardrooms in a panic, and Alex was fielding angry calls from investors. The power dynamic had shifted. A week later, Serena forwarded her a leaked Slack thread from Nexicor's sales team. VP Sales, anyone else hearing about Beacon Analytics? KND swears by them. Account Exec, they're outperforming our V3 forecasts. Clients are asking why we can't deliver the same. VP Sales, if it's Maya, leadership is in serious trouble. This is about to blow. Maya read the messages twice, then leaned back in her chair, a slow, satisfied smile creeping across her face. The whispers had started. Soon, they'd be a roar. But victory didn't taste sweet. Not yet. One night, after pushing a new patch, Maya scrolled through Nexicor's press feed. Daniel was on stage again, arms wide, declaring, Nexicor is the only engine you'll ever need. The audience cheered, oblivious. Her stomach twisted. The world still believed him. Beacon was saving clients, yes, but it was quiet, surgical. Her name wasn't in headlines. His still was. Maya closed her laptop, staring at the shadows pooling in her apartment. She wanted more than contracts. More than quiet victories. She wanted the truth dragged into the light. And for that, she needed to play a longer game. She opened her notebook, flipped to phase 2. At the top, she wrote one word, exposure. Then she circled it 3 times. By late summer, the shine was peeling off Nexicor's empire. At first, it was just murmurs. Investors quietly asking why Q2 forecasts had missed benchmarks by double digits. A headline buried on page 6 of the Wall Street Journal, major partner reports disruptions in Nexicor predictions. But murmurs don't stay quiet long in Silicon Valley. Within weeks, they turned into a steady drumbeat. Clients were frustrated. Vendors were demanding refunds. The myth of Nexicor's flawless engine was cracking. And behind the cracks, Maya was watching. Klein and Danner's board sent out a glowing internal memo, Beacon Analytics overlay has restored 96% accuracy. Someone leaked it to the press. Suddenly, industry blogs were buzzing about a mysterious boutique firm outperforming Nexicor at its own game. At first, Alex and Daniel tried to laugh it off. Beacon's a rounding error, Daniel told the sales team. A garage project. We're the empire. They're the flea. But fleas have teeth. And Beacon was biting deep. In September, Nexicor held its quarterly review call with investors. Maya wasn't there, but Serena slipped her a recording. Daniel's voice filled her apartment, all swagger and polish. Minor inconsistencies in our forecasting model are being addressed. Version 3.1 will eliminate variance completely. Our pipeline remains strong, and we're committed to client trust. A pause. Then an investor's voice, clipped, skeptical. If your engine is so strong, why are partners signing contracts with Beacon Analytics? Silence. Daniel stammered, pivoted, tried to spin. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Maya replayed that section 3 times, savoring every second of Daniel's flounder. Inside Nexacore, Ravi kept feeding her updates. Slack threads full of panic. Engineers burning out as Daniel demanded fixes for problems he didn't understand. Alex retreating into endless board meetings, his once perfect calm cracking at the edges. Ravi's latest message made Maya's pulse spike. They're running emergency patches, but each one makes the system worse. It's collapsing from the inside. Maya scribbled in her notebook, crumble phase initiated. But collapse isn't loud at first. It's subtle. A contract quietly cancelled. A delayed shipment. A client hesitating to renew. Then it snowballs. In October, Nexacore's largest European partner pulled out, citing unreliable forecasts. The news hit Bloomberg within hours. Their valuation dipped 5% overnight. By morning, Maya's phone was buzzing non-stop. New inquiries. New clients. The world was starting to notice Beacon. She sat in her apartment, coffee steaming beside her, staring at her inbox. Each email felt like a vindication. For months she'd been invisible. Now, piece by piece, she was reclaiming the spotlight, not through headlines, but through undeniable results. Still, her chest tightened. She wanted more than results. She wanted retribution. Meanwhile, Nexacore scrambled to regain control. Daniel doubled down on theatrics, grand promises, flashy demos. Alex tried to reassure investors with charts that told half-truths. But the more they spun, the more desperate they looked. Serena texted Maya one evening, "They're breaking. You should see Daniel in meetings, sweating, snapping at everyone. It's only a matter of time before the board turns on him." Maya typed back, "Good. Let him bleed." Yet with every victory, the danger grew. One night, a courier dropped another thick envelope at Maya's door. Another cease and desist, this time harsher, accusing her of industrial sabotage. She snapped a photo, sent it to Sarah Patel, her pro bono lawyer. Sarah called within minutes. "They're bluffing," Sarah said. "They want to scare you. But with Ravi's logs and your redundancy patents, they don't have a case. If they escalate, we'll counter. And trust me, if this goes public, they'll regret it." Maya exhaled slowly. For the first time, she felt the law shifting onto her side. The final crack came from inside. Ravi messaged her at midnight, "Board discovered Daniel's Slack messages about pushing you out. Investors furious. Alex is trying to contain it, but Daniel's finished. It's unraveling." Maya stared at the message, heart racing. She imagined Daniel pacing a conference room, the smirk finally gone, cornered by his own arrogance. She whispered to herself, "My turn." The next morning, Maya signed Beacon's biggest contract yet, with Klein and Danner, formalizing a long-term partnership worth millions. Her name, her signature, her company. She sat back, hands trembling over the paper. It was more than money. It was proof. Proof she couldn't be erased. Proof the empire that betrayed her was crumbling, and she was the one pressing on the cracks. The first shot came at dawn. Maya was sipping burnt coffee when her phone buzzed with a news alert: Nexacore files suit against Beacon Analytics, citing theft of trade secrets. Her stomach dropped. She clicked the link. There was Daniel, on the courthouse steps, jaw set like a warrior, cameras flashing. Nexicor is under attack by a rogue former employee, he told reporters, voice dripping with moral outrage. Beacon Analytics is built on stolen intellectual property. We will defend our innovation, our investors, and our clients. Maya nearly laughed. Our innovation. She'd written the very code he was swearing to protect. But the laughter never came. Instead, a cold heaviness settled in her chest. This wasn't just legal. This was war. By mid-morning, her inbox exploded. Journalists. Former colleagues. Even old professors. Do you have a statement? Is it true you stole their code? Can you comment on Nexicor's allegations? The narrative was tilting fast, headlines multiplying like wildfire, disgraced founder turns competitor. Beacon Analytics in hot water. The woman behind Nexicor faces lawsuit. Her face, the one erased from the founder's page, was suddenly everywhere. But not as a visionary. As a villain. Sarah Patel called, voice sharp but steady. They're going full PR assault, Sarah said. They want to poison the well before we can fight back. But remember, you have the receipts. Every commit log, every email, Ravi's files. This isn't fire. It's smoke. We'll cut through it. Maya rubbed her temples. They've got the headlines. People believe headlines. Then we'll give them better ones, Sarah replied. Meanwhile, inside Nexicor, panic brewed. Ravi fed her transcripts from emergency board meetings. Board member, why wasn't this lawsuit filed sooner? Why now? Legal counsel, because Beacon just signed Klein and Danner. Nexicor's numbers are tanking. Alex, we need to control the story. If investors think we lost our architecture, we're finished. Daniel's voice cut through, she'll fold under pressure. She's not built for this kind of fight. Maya read the line 3 times, her grip on the phone tightening until her knuckles went white. She whispered to herself, watch me. The attacks didn't stop at headlines. One night, she tried logging into her Beacon servers. Denied. She tried again. The system sputtered, error messages spilling across her screen. Someone had launched a coordinated breach attempt. Her heart hammered. She scrambled, locking down firewalls, rerouting servers. Whoever it was, they were sophisticated. At 3:14 a.m., a final message appeared on her admin console, Beacon will burn. She sat frozen, sweat slick on her palms. Nexicor wasn't just fighting in court. They were trying to snuff her out entirely. But the next morning brought an unexpected twist. A small blog, Midwest Tech Review, published a piece titled, Beacon vs. Nexicor, Who Really Built the Engine? The article cited leaked commit logs, hers. Screenshots with her initials, her timestamps, months before Daniel ever joined. Maya's breath caught. Someone had slipped the evidence into the press. Her phone buzzed with a new message from Ravi, that wasn't me. Someone else inside leaked it. You've got more allies than you think. By noon, the story spread. Bigger outlets picked it up. CNBC ran a segment. A talking head said, if these logs are legitimate, Nexicor's case collapses. This could be catastrophic for their IPO. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt the scales tip, just slightly, in her favor. But victory was fragile. She still had a lawsuit on her back, reporters swarming her doorstep, and investors circling like vultures. She sat at her desk, staring at the chaos on her screens, and felt the weight of 2 worlds pressing down, fire on one side, ash on the other. If she moved wrong, Beacon would be incinerated. If she held her ground, Nexicor might burn first. That evening, Sarah arrived at Maya's apartment with a briefcase full of files. They sat at the kitchen table, papers spread out between them. Here's what we do, Sarah said. We file a countersuit. Retaliatory termination. Invalid non-compete. Intellectual property attribution. And we push for discovery. Their Slack logs, their Jira tickets, their board notes. Once those surface, the truth won't just be evidence. It'll be public record. Maya stared at the stack of papers. She thought about the garage, about Red Bulls clinking against cheap wood, about the promise that nobody would be left behind. And then she thought about Daniel's words, "She's not built for this kind of fight." Her jaw tightened. "File it," she said. The courthouse smelled faintly of old wood polish and nerves. Reporters clustered at the steps outside, cameras flashing as if it were a celebrity trial instead of a civil suit. Maya walked past them with Sarah Patel at her side, head high, tailored gray suit borrowed from a friend, hair pulled back in a no-nonsense knot. She ignored the questions shouted her way. "Did you steal Nexicor's code? Are you trying to tank their IPO?" She didn't answer. Her silence was her power now. Inside, the courtroom buzzed. Nexicor's legal team sat on the right, for lawyers in dark suits, briefcases lined like soldiers. Daniel sat behind them, navy suit crisp, smirk plastered on like armor. Alex was there too, quieter, paler, his gaze fixed on the table. Maya didn't look at either of them. She took her seat at the left, Sarah flipping through notes, calm as ever. The judge entered. An older woman with sharp glasses and an expression that suggested zero patience for theatrics. She called the case to order. Nexicor's lead counsel stood first. His voice boomed through the room. "Your Honor, this case is about theft. About a former employee who took confidential intellectual property and is now using it to profit under a competing enterprise. My client invested millions into this technology. We will show evidence that Miss Ross's so-called beacon analytics is nothing more than Nexicor's engine, repackaged and resold." He sat down with a satisfied thump. Daniel leaned back in his chair, smirk widening. Sarah rose slowly, smoothing her jacket. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "This case," she said, "is not about theft. It's about erasure. About a woman who architected the very system Nexicor now claims as theirs, only to be forced out, her name scrubbed from history, her work exploited without credit. We will show logs, emails, and witnesses that prove Nexicor's engine was built by Maya Ross, and that her termination, without cause, rendered any so-called non-compete invalid under state law." The judge nodded once. "Proceed." The evidence began. First, the commit logs. Sarah handed up a thick binder. Each page displayed code files stamped with dates and author initials, MR, all predating Daniel's arrival. The judge flipped through them, brow raised. "Mr. Renshaw, is this your code?" Daniel shifted in his seat. "I supervised development. I refined it." Sarah's eyes glinted. "Supervised? According to Nexicor's own records, you weren't promoted until after Miss Ross's departure. Can you explain how you supervised work you weren't present for?" Daniel's lawyer objected. Overruled. The room stirred. Next came the Slack messages. Ravi had delivered them like dynamite. Sarah read aloud, "We need to push her out before her vesting hits. She's too embedded. Get her name off the roadmap." Daniel's face drained of color. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. "Mr. Renshaw," Sarah pressed, "are these your words?" Daniel stammered. "Taken out of context." "Context?" Sarah snapped, her voice rising for the first time. "The context is erasure. The context is greed. The context is you stealing credit for work you didn't understand." The judge raised a hand. "Mr. Renshaw, answer the question." Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. Silence. Then came the witness, Ravi. Nervous, hoodie traded for a pressed shirt, but steady as he took the stand. "I was an engineer on the redundancy layer," he said. "Maya designed it. Daniel ordered us to cut it, called it dead weight. When the system began failing, they blamed us. But it wasn't us. It was them." Nexicor's lawyer tried to rattle him, but Ravi didn't waver. His testimony landed like a hammer. By midday, Nexacor's narrative was crumbling. Their theft case had flipped into a story of retaliation and fraud. Daniel sat rigid, smirk gone, sweat beading at his temples. Alex kept his eyes on the table, saying nothing. Finally, the judge leaned forward. "Mr. Renshaw, Mr. Carter," she said, voice sharp as glass, "I have seen little evidence that supports your claim of theft. What I have seen is substantial evidence of intellectual contribution by Miss Ross, and disturbing indications of misconduct in her removal. Unless you have further proof, I am inclined to rule against you." The words landed like a gavel before the gavel. Sarah whispered to Maya, "We've got them." But Maya wasn't looking at Sarah. She was staring at Daniel. For the first time, he looked small, cornered, exposed. His empire was cracking, and he knew it. Maya leaned back, calm, steady. For months, she'd been erased. Today, she was undeniable. The courthouse was packed the morning of the verdict. Reporters jostled for position on the marble steps, microphones raised like spears. Headlines had already started writing themselves, the trial that could topple Nexacor. Maya sat at the plaintiff's table, notebook in her lap, pen balanced between her fingers. Sarah whispered something about damages, injunctions, strategy, but Maya barely heard. All she could focus on was the weight of the moment. 8 years of sacrifice, betrayal, silence. It all came down to this. Across the aisle, Daniel slouched in his chair, eyes hollow, jaw tight. The smirk was gone. His navy suit looked too heavy for his frame. Alex sat beside him, staring at his hands, as if praying for a future that no longer existed. The judge entered. The room snapped to attention. After reviewing evidence, testimony, and documentation, Judge Kellerman began, her voice even, precise, "This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Miss Maya Ross." The words landed like a thunderclap. For a heartbeat, the room was silent. Then the judge continued, slicing through the quiet with surgical clarity. Nexacor's non-compete is invalid under state statute, as Miss Ross was terminated without cause. Furthermore, substantial evidence, including commit logs, internal communications, and witness testimony, proves that Miss Ross authored the foundational architecture of the Nexacor forecasting engine. She glanced at Daniel, who shifted in his seat like a trapped animal. Accordingly, the judge said, "This court orders the following: compensatory damages to Miss Ross, inclusive of interest and legal fees, permanent injunction against Nexacor's continued misrepresentation of authorship, and intellectual attribution rights granted to Miss Ross retroactively and henceforth across all corporate filings, product documentation, and marketing collateral." Her gavel struck once, sharp and final. Court adjourned. The room erupted, reporters scrambling, whispers flying, phones buzzing. Maya sat frozen, pen still in her hand, chest rising and falling like she'd just surfaced from deep water. Sarah leaned in, voice low but electric. "We won. Every count. You just made history." But Maya didn't smile. Not yet. She turned her head slowly, locking eyes with Daniel. For once, he didn't look back with defiance. He looked broken. The empire he'd stolen had been stripped bare, his name dragged into the mud by the very words he'd once used to erase hers. Alex avoided her gaze altogether, shoulders slumped like a man who'd finally seen the cost of his silence. Outside the courthouse, the press swarmed. Cameras flashed, questions flew. "Maya, do you feel vindicated? Are you planning to take over Nexacor? What's next for Beacon Analytics?" She paused at the top of the steps, the morning sun breaking through gray clouds, blinding and warm. For a moment, she thought about answering, about shouting the truth she'd fought so long to prove. Instead, she said only this: "This isn't about revenge. It's about correction. The record is mine again. That's enough." And then she walked past the microphones, her silence louder than any soundbite. Back at her apartment, the world felt strangely still. The cactus from her old desk sat on the windowsill, leaning toward the light. Her laptop chimed with emails, investors, clients, even universities wanting her to speak. But the one message that made her stop was from Aaron Barlow at Klein and Danner. Congratulations. We're ready to expand Beacon. Full partnership. Maya exhaled, slow and steady. Beacon wasn't just surviving. It was thriving. And this time, it carried her name, etched in ink no one could erase. That evening, Serena called. They fired him, she said. Daniel. Effective immediately. Internal memo leaked, terminated for cause. Alex stepped down, too. The board's in chaos. Maya listened in silence, letting the words wash over her. She pictured Daniel packing a box, security badge deactivated, the same humiliating walk she'd once endured. Only this time, the right person was walking it. She poured herself a glass of wine, sat at her desk, and opened her notebook. The take-back log lay full, pages bleeding with betrayal, anger, strategy. At the very end, she wrote 3 words in neat block letters. Verdict delivered. Then she closed the book. For the first time in years, Maya didn't feel erased, or furious, or even vindictive. She felt clean. The wounds still scarred, yes, but no longer bleeding. She'd faced the men who had stolen her name, and the world had finally heard the truth. Some bridges you cross. Some you burn. And some, you salt the ground so nothing that arrogant ever grows again.